everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. I'd like to welcome Joe and Christina, who are going to share their experience of building their family through open adoption. So welcome, guys.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So do you want to start by sharing what made you choose Adoptions from the Heart and what your initial, expectations were about this process?
So we went with Adoptions from the Heart. We had compared 3 or 4 other agencies. We looked at more religious organizations. We looked at some nationwide ones. But Adoptions from the Heart actually has a small office close to our house where we were living when we started the adoption process. So we liked that we could go in person and meet some of the staff, go to the open houses in person versus like Zoom. I don't know, I think we just felt when we were ready to adopt, right? Because we went to a few open houses before we made the final decision that we were going to move forward with adoption. And I think even that took a couple years, honestly. Like the open houses, I think it spanned 3 years.
No, it was longer than that.
Yeah, and I think 2 or 3 of them were Adoption from the Heart open houses. Like we always went back to you guys. And I think that was kind of like we felt connected at that point.
Any advice for folks who are doing exactly that same thing, where they're kind of out there just trying to research different agencies, maybe even contemplating working with like a private attorney and not going the agency route as long as their state allows for it? But any advice about what's important to have as your backbone going through this process?
So what I will say initially was difficult for me, seeing how Adoptions from the Heart advocated for birth parents, right? When we first started talking about adoption. But as we got more and more educated about the process and became more open-minded and open to open adoption, it became important for us that the agency we worked with advocated for birth moms and dads. Adoptions from the Heart just made us feel like the well-being of whatever birth family we were matched with, that their well-being trumped like our desire to grow our family. It wasn't like, I felt like there were some agencies, especially web-based, and I won't say names, but I feel like there were some agencies that were kind of like, we're going to say, whatever it takes to get it done. And then birth mom was kind of on her own after that. Mm-hmm. And I think that Adoptions from the Heart takes a different approach. And that was important to me anyway, as a mom, to make sure that my child's birth mom still felt supported and cared for after placement.
Yeah, I think because it took us, I want to say it was like over, 6 or 7 years. We went to 3 different open houses to 3 different Adoptions from the Heart open houses over, I think, the course of like 7 years. Mm-hmm. And the first one we went to, we left and was like, absolutely not. we're not gonna work with Adoptions from the Heart. The second time we kind of softened a little bit and said maybe, and then the third time I think was when we're kind of decided to work with Adoptions from the Heart. I would say with most of the other ones that I've seen out there, it is very service based. Saying they try to give you like an ETA when you're going to get a kid, and I think when we knew that we were ready, we had concern about how the biological parent was going to be treated. What were they being counseled to make sure that they were making the right decision. I think those things were important to us. I can't remember who it was, but someone had said, like, we counsel them to make sure that this is the best decision. Like, we look at every other avenue possible before we decide on moving forward with this, which, it's kind of counterintuitive sometimes because, if you're in the adoption process, like your goal is to eventually be able to adopt a baby. And it seems like sometimes Adoption from the Heart is doing the opposite by counseling them or looking at, what options are available. Mm-hmm. But I felt a lot better at the end when we got to the point of being a placement that our birth mother had, been counseled and
she had been given other options. Yeah.
And she, came to the decision that was best for her. It didn't seem or didn't appear that there was like any kind of
coercion.
Yeah. Or,
Yeah. I will also say that because it took us so long to come around, that naturally staff changes, right, at these agencies over years. But it didn't matter when we came to Adoptions from the Heart, your messaging was the same. That first time, the second time, and the third time, no matter who was running the open house, who was handing out pamphlets, all of the messaging and the brand was consistent. That stood out to us as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that because, I think our agency has always tried to stay true to our value system and our ethics as an adoption agency. Specifically on the topic that you're talking about with birth parents, many people don't realize the extent of options counseling that we do with a woman or a man who calls us and says, hey, I'm considering adoption. And it seems kind of crazy to think about it this way, but you're right, Joe. We almost talk them out of adoption before we get to adoption, because we want to make sure that they have thoroughly thought through everything before they've turned to the permanent forever decision of placing their child for adoption. Not just for them, not just for you as a potential family who desires to build your family, but for that child, right? We don't want that child to be placed and then replaced and then placed. Like, we don't want the back and forth because that doesn't serve the best interest of the child. So I think that if you really understand the intent here, and that we are not here to just take children and give them to families, right? Because that's kind of the umbrella of, well, adoption's all about building families and we want to become parents. And yes, it is. But understanding that we're here to make sure that this is actually what the birth parent wants versus somebody making that decision for them creates a better foundation for your adoption triad. Because then as the parents who are parenting this child, that this child was placed out of love and out of reason for wanting a better future and all the reasons why birth parents choose placement, right? So there's less of that fear of like, oh, well, what if the birth parent comes back and tries to take this kid, right? Because that's always like the stereotypical thing in adoption. So I really appreciate you guys sharing that. And I also appreciate your transparency of like, initially you were cautious because a lot of people are, and that's completely understandable. Talk to us a little bit about once you were placed and what your open adoption looks like today.
So we were placed really quickly. We were prepared to wait. I think we had in our head like at least 2 years, so we had travel plans and renovations we were going to do in our house, things to fill the time. Because at that point we had already been on our fertility journey for several years and we had gotten comfortable with waiting at that point. And so the placement happened really quickly. And I remember feeling like I have to be okay with the revocation period, right? I have to be okay with caring for this baby, maybe temporarily, maybe, for 2 weeks or 2 months, depending on what state you're placed in, all those things can vary. So when we got the call, we were placed in Delaware, and I think their revocation period is like 30 days.
Something. 14 days.
Ones, right? And we were joking around when we were waiting, like hoping we would get one of the states with the shorter, but our luck would have it that it was one of the longer states. And so I just remember like when we got the phone call that it was a Delaware placement, having to make peace with maybe I will have this baby for a month and love her and care for her for a month and then give her back to her birth mom. That is a very big possibility here. And Adoptions from the Heart did a really good job at making me feel steady. Even though so many things it goes very fast, right? Because our birth mom was due, I think 2 weeks after we got that call. So it was all happening very quickly. And so many things can change in that time. But our caseworker, our social worker made us feel very steady, very prepared for parenting forever or having to make the drive to, give the baby back if ultimately that's what birth mom decided. I think I felt anyway. I'm prepared for both outcomes. We didn't have a disruption. I know families, that's always a real possibility, but we didn't have a disruption. And we ended up really hitting it off with our birth mom, really developing a good relationship with her. I remember when we met in person at the hospital. Well, before we got to the hospital, she had called Adoptions from the Heart and asked that we not come the day the baby was born, that she wanted that day with her. And I remember feeling disappointed, like I don't want to lie. Naturally, I felt disappointed. My social worker, Brandy, was just like, she was awesome. And I think she could sense, like, on the phone, when she called to tell me that she was in labor, but she didn't want me to come right away. But I think that when we finally did get there and birth mom, we were able to physically hug each other and be together. I don't know how to describe what happened in that moment, but it was almost like she needed that one day with her. And when we were finally able to meet in person and all be together with the baby in one room, like everything just kind of clicked. And it's been that way since the baby was born, and she'll be 3 in November. And it is like I trust you to be her parent. I trust you to make these decisions and keep me informed. And she's rooting from where she is. And she knows everything that she's doing, but she's not parenting her. I think initially I was concerned that she would try to parent her if we kept her in the fold. That's what took me so long to be open to open adoption. I wanted to be the parent. But it's been a really great relationship where we have a family together, but Joe and I are still Charlie's parents.
And do you guys have direct contact via phone?
We are so we have each other's phone numbers. We follow each other on social media. So she gets to see, I'm very active on Instagram, so she gets to see pictures of her every day almost. We go back and forth in DMs, and we chat about what she's up to and what the baby's doing, and we send videos. We don't have to go through Adoptions from the Heart to communicate. We have a relationship outside of the agency.
Well, it sounds like you guys were able to naturally evolve and connect and build trust in a way that most relationships require anyway, which is why when folks ask the question of like, well, how do you get to that point? I always remind them, well, how do you get to that point in any relationship with anybody, right? It normally takes communication and trust. Joe, do you have any advice for folks who maybe are still in the waiting stages and they obviously believe and support open adoption, but maybe are just still cautious about what this will look like? Do you have anything you want to share with them?
It's hard to talk about the waiting period just because like we're probably like a walking billboard or advertisement for Adoptions from the Heart, because I know we completed, once we did all of our paperwork and were like home study done, approved, ready to go, I think we were live for a week. We were live for like 5 days, and we got a call thinking that there was some paperwork that was missed or like a question, and they were calling like, no, you've actually been picked in place. So
well, not placed, but selected.
You've been selected.
Matched is the term.
So it was, as far as the waiting piece, I really can't speak to that as much. But as far as kind of worries and things like that, I think when we got to the point of being placed, I wasn't so much as worried as what I thought I would be. Like at the end of the day, I just felt like even if she changed her mind, it's still a good situation, or the best possible environment for our daughter to be in, that even if her birth mom changed her mind and decided to parent, that she would still be good. And I think once we got to that point, I was kind of a little bit more at peace with things, even with traveling to Delaware. I think she had asked us on our first meeting, like, were you guys going to be there, during the delivery? I think maybe her concern was that we would like be in the delivery room and like after she, labored and delivered the child, that would just be like there to just pick her up and take her.
Like hovering,
and we just kind of told her, whatever you want us to do, if you want us to be there, we'll be there. If you don't want us to be there, that's fine as well. Whatever you choose to do, or if you change your mind, I think we told her, that's okay too. And I think we're just at peace with whatever decision that she chose to make.
Yeah, we're still rooting for you, no matter what your choice is. We're rooting for you. So if you choose to parent her and the baby does not come home with us, we still want what's best for you. Because now at this point, we're invested in your story as well.
And I think even back when we met her for the first time, I think things just kind of clicked relatively easily. I think Adoptions for the Heart kind of prepared us pretty well as far as like, what's the word? Not manners, but etiquette as far as being in the hospital.
Yes.
Asking permission if it was okay to,
touch
pick up
the baby,
okay
take pictures of her.
So I think she felt kind of at ease with us. I don't think she felt like we were just these people.
We were very big on that. Very big on asking her permission for everything that we did, especially in the hospital. Adoptions from the Heart did a really good job at that presentation. And like, that is still her. She is still the mom of that child. Medical decisions, like if a nurse comes in when we're all together, you don't pipe in and make any decision. And so I think that we did a really good job at making her feel like her voice still mattered, even after the baby came and she was, of course, preparing to, place her with us. She still felt valued in that setting.
I don't think it was anything that I was expecting it to be, because I didn't really know kind of how it would work when we got there. But she was, thanking us, and I was like no, like, thank you for trusting us. Thank you for, choosing us and allowing us to be parents to her. So it wasn't what I was expecting it to be. It was a lot more, I thought there would be a lot more tension or weirdness about it. And it kind of flowed kind of naturally. I think at the end, when the day that we went and visited, I think we visited for maybe like an hour. And then, we, made sure that she was good, made sure the baby was okay. And we told her that we would see her the next morning. And then we came the next morning. And I think that time she was discharged, right? So, we talked for a little bit, and then I think she said, she said goodbye to Charlie there. She said goodbye there. And then we went, they gave us like another room we
were in a private room.
And we put her in the car seat, and we thought it was kind of weird, like walking out of the hospital with this baby, and like, is anyone gonna stop us? We were in a hotel, and so the hotel people saw us leave and then saw us come back with like this newborn in a car seat. So there was kind of some weird looks, and I think we thought it was kind of weird too, leaving the hospital, like, is somebody going to tackle us with this newborn out? But I think it was
very easy. Yeah, like it just flowed, I guess is what you're trying to get at. Yeah. It was just like the social worker on birth mom's side and on our side, they did a lot of communicating, I'm sure, behind the scenes to make it flow that way. I'm sure we were looking at it like, wow, this is really easy. We're here and now we're leaving, and they pulled up the car and we were done. But I know that there's a lot that happens behind the scenes, and doctors are writing a report about the baby's health to make sure that everything is documented. So that just goes to speak to how much work actually the social workers are doing while we are wrapping our heads around everything that's going on with the baby.
Well, again, we appreciate you sharing all of that. While not every situation may go as smoothly, sometimes there are hiccups along the way. We can guarantee that the agency does our very best to try to help mediate all of that. And it's important to rely on your social worker as you're going through the times of placement to make sure that you have the right support. But again, I'm happy that you guys had a smooth ride, and that your relationship with birth mom has evolved so naturally, and that you have a good, healthy boundary in place, because boundaries are also really important. It's interesting because as you guys are sharing, a lot of what you're saying is the content of what we talk about in our educational classes. So I'm always just happy to hear families come full circle, because it's one thing to talk about something, and then it's another thing to live it. And I feel like what you're describing is like the reality of open adoption, and you guys have really been through it. And I just appreciate that you're in a good, healthy place now. Christina, I know that you continue to have great connection to Adoptions from the Heart post-placement. Any final thoughts on just what the agency has meant to you and what you want others to know?
Yeah, so Adoptions from the Heart feels like part of our triad at this point. They are, to me, very much a big part of my daughter's life and how she came into our lives. So I try to, one, talk very openly about adoption with friends and family, so that when my daughter is older, asking questions, or, you know, family is around each other, it's not weird. Like, this is our cousin, she's adopted, like, it's not a thing. So I try to stay connected with the adoption community, so that in my real life, adoption is less, I don't want to say taboo, because I don't think it's taboo, but I think it's misunderstood. So I think that I've taken very personally the challenge of destigmatizing adoption, and debunking a lot of misunderstandings or myths about it. So that's kind of motivated me to stay connected to Adoptions from the Heart. And so that when my daughter grows up, she can say, you know, adoption was not weird to talk about in my family. It wasn't some big secret that I found out on my 18th birthday. It was, you know, my mom still volunteered with the agency. Both of my, you know, my birth mom and my mom, you know, do work with the agency, or they talk together about adoption. So I think it's important for the sake of the child as well to stay tethered to the community, because when me and my husband are gone, she is still going to be an adopted person living in a world where, hopefully when she's an adult, people don't misunderstand it as much. But I want to give her all the tools necessary for her to understand where she comes from, and understand what makes her story unique and not a bad way. It's a beautiful thing, what's happened here. And I think part of doing that is staying tethered to the adoption community, whether that be the agency that you worked with, or social media is great for that. You can connect with somebody that you've never met in real life and share the commonalities of your adoption story. Getting a home study is very intrusive, right? Like, to be real about it. And so by the time you're done with your home study, you and your social worker have worked through some very uncomfortable scenarios or conversations together. So she feels like she doesn't work for Adoptions from the Heart anymore, and I still keep in touch with her. It's just about relationships, building relationships with the people that ultimately brought us our family.
Well, thank you guys so much. We appreciate you sharing your story. I know this will be very helpful for others who are just trying to understand different experiences, to help them become the best parents they can be. Continue to tune in to future episodes here at Adoptions from the Heart TV.